Well, hello and welcome to the show. I'm so excited today to have on Tammie Starnes. She's an incredible being who I've had the pleasure to meet and has lots to share with us today and the about her business, Abundant Healing, and so much more. So, Tammie, welcome.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you for taking the time to be with us and share. And I'll let you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and anything else you think to add in there.
All right, super. Well, name's Tammie Starnes. I've been doing medical massage 27 years, and I've been into frequency therapy since I'm about 30 years old. And yeah, I've been on a journey for a long time of learning, how to grow, how to get better, how to heal from different traumas, accidents, abuse, that kind of stuff. So,
That's amazing. Amazing. And you you said in there that you've been since you were about 30 that you got into frequency
mhm.
healing. Would you say that's kind of where it started and where this kind of all stemmed from or
Gosh, I'm trying to think. I've been doing, like yoga since I'm 4 years old, so like
oh,
I
really?
would catch on a channel 13 and my mom would come in and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm doing yoga. You want to do it?" And she's like, "No, what's wrong with you?" And then I got into meditation as a teenager and she'd come in my room. She's like, "What are you doing? What do you like? I'm meditating, Mom. Want to join me?" She's like, "No, what's wrong with you?" So
Wow.
it was always a thing. I was always growing and trying to learn what this next thing was. But when I was 28 was when I met my herbalist, and she helped fix my stomach because I'm a recovered bulimic, and she helped fix my stomach in a month. It was amazing. And
Mm-hmm.
she was the one that got me into frequency therapy. She was
Mm-hmm.
72 when I met her, and she was actually 89, and I worked on her literally the month before she passed away. She was amazing. But
Wow.
changed my entire life just in that short period of time when I knew her in my, 28, 30. And then at 30 was when she got me introduced to like Royal Rafe machinery, frequency therapy, that kind of stuff. So she taught me so much about getting rid of parasites, eating right for your blood type. She taught me all sorts of stuff like that. And then different supplements that can help you with different things from lung health to blood pressure to thyroid to hormones. But it was all natural stuff.
That is like super fascinating. This
Yeah.
is why I like love doing these too, is like, so you were really in tune with it from an early age and already like curious about it and exploring it
Mhm.
on your own, even though it doesn't sound like maybe the environment you were in growing up was like attuned to that.
No, no. Mom was drinking her soda and walking around there eating her chips, you know.
Uh-huh.
And mom loved nature and she loved being outside and loved all that, but she wasn't into like yoga. Like, what
Uh-huh.
is yoga? Why would you stretch? You know,
Right, right.
yeah.
That's so awesome. Well, I think even like in the last 20 years, like yoga's totally changed, of course, with what people know
Yeah,
about it and how more people are into it. So
right.
let's go back to two of like what you're doing now, and then we'll kind of work our way back from, being young and getting into all this. That was like really interesting what you already shared. So you
Right.
have this business, Abundant Healing. You
Mhm.
have been doing medical massage for so many years, and you have a great facility that has just all this support around healing, around the body, emotional body, around just all these different aspects of what we need for support for um,
Right.
healing, essentially, would
Hmm.
you say?
For sure. Yeah.
How did that come to be? How did that come to be where you're at now?
Well, I was very happy doing my medical massage. Everything was great. I did 25 to 28 clients a week. It was perfect. Had a beautiful little office and it was a mile from my house. It was perfect. And then March 13th of 2020 happened and the world shut down. And I'm home with my kids and I'm looking on Gaia and I happen to see this thing about this harmonic egg. And Gail Lynn had done this podcast and whatever about this harmonic egg, and it had her cell phone on there. I thought, well, let me call her and find out what this is about. I'm home. I'm not doing anything anyway. And she tells
Mhm.
me about this beautiful harmonic egg and how it's light and sound therapy and it helps people to heal traumas, helps them get over grief, helps with inflammation, helps with all these beautiful things. And I'm like, wow. And she told me how much it was. And I went, oh, it's a little much. Because for the next 2 weeks, we're not working because COVID shut down for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I
two
said, well,
weeks.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, 2 weeks. And I said, when COVID's over, I said, I'm really interested when I get back to work again. And so she's like, oh, okay, great. So we hang up the phone, whatever. But in the meantime, my daughter, my youngest one, didn't do well during the shutdown. My oldest one, she was fine. She was 16, 17 years old. She carried on with her life, went out to eat with her friends, was hanging out. She didn't care. My son was hanging out with his friends. They would game together and stuff. And the parents and I, we all agreed, and the kids hanging out together. My youngest one went into this cocoon and she kind of stopped speaking. And that's where I kind of like lost it as a mom. I'm like, what do I do with this one? So I took her to an EFT therapist and they were doing tapping and doing different things, trying to help her. And the only time she would speak to that woman was when her deaf blind dog would come up and sit next to us. So I went, okay, let me get her a dog, you know. So I did that. I got her the dog and everything. And everything helped a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
nothing was doing it 100%. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, okay, well, now I have to switch things up. So I called Gail Lynn and I said, can your harmonic egg help with my daughter? I'm really getting afraid. And she's like, absolutely, get her the egg. So I researched it and it was 7 hours away. It was in Bordentown, Ohio. And
Wow.
so we packed up the car. We took off to Bordentown, Ohio, and we went there. We did the egg the first day. And I got to be honest, I wasn't wowed. I went in
Mm-hmm.
there and honestly, the whole time I'm looking around, I'm thinking, I think they missed some paint up there. I wonder how they clean this thing, and I was analytical and I'm like, how do those pieces go together? So I'm taking it apart and I'm doing it in my head. And the guy came to get me out and he's like, how do you feel? And I'm like, thank you. It was good. Thank you. And I was just being polite. And we had gone in for intuition, which was interesting, but I really wasn't paying attention. So my daughter gets in and she does her session and she comes out and I said, babe, how was it? And she was like, Mom, that was stupid. I had to pee the whole time. Okay,
Great.
great. That was worth seven
That's
hour
great.
road
Thank
trip.
you.
Right. So we go back to the hotel. We have a beautiful swim that night. We go out to eat that night. Um, and 3 o'clock in the morning, I wake up and I'm having this vision and I'm driving on the road and I get behind this guy that's really annoying. And, I quickly go to the right lane to get away from him. Well, in the right lane, there's now a white car turning around backwards and heading toward me with a single female driver in it. And I woke up with that panic feeling because I knew it was going to be a car accident.
Mm.
And I said, okay, this is a vision. I know what this is. So I let it go. I go back to sleep. We wake up at 7 in the morning and we go downstairs. Mind you, my daughter doesn't talk to strangers, not at this point. She went down, ordered an entire breakfast by herself in absolute detail from an absolute stranger. And I'm just watching her talk to her and I'm blown away. And then Lady Ash, she goes, what brings you to Ohio? My daughter goes, my mom wanted me to do some stupid harmonic egg. It didn't even help me. And I'm like, you're speaking, I win.
Oh my
So,
gosh, that's amazing.
yeah, so that's how that one worked out. Yeah. And
That
we actually went back, did the egg again, and because they let us do it two back to back because we traveled so far. And then I
Sure.
got back in the car and we're heading home. And literally that whole accident scene played out on the way home. I got behind this guy that's so annoying. And I thought, nope, stay in your lane. And I did. I stayed in my lane. And in the next lane next to us, a white car turned around backwards and facing the opposite way in the lane next
Wow.
to me with a single female driver. And I just drove past it and went, okay, so we need to get the egg to Hillsborough. So,
Wow. If that
yeah,
is not a sign, like I had goosebumps when you were saying that. That's
yeah,
crazy.
it was so crazy. Yeah,
That,
never at one point did I think, what's my business plan? How can I make money doing this? I was like, I just need the egg in Jersey.
right.
Yeah,
Like a knowing, like that was
yes,
such a knowing of that moment. That's what I
yeah,
need to do.
yeah, for sure.
That's absolutely beautiful. And thank you for sharing that story because it's just like, I mean, like COVID for everyone
Hmm.
changed so much. Like it was such a hard, weird, strange time. And it was
Hmm.
also such a blessing in so many ways. More and more people are sharing stories about like what transitioned
Yeah.
during that time.
Hmm.
So that was like your pivotal COVID moment type
Moment.
story. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And such a mother's determination too to go out and find what can I do to support my child?
Yeah,
What can I find?
exactly. Yeah. Because when your kid's not doing 100%, you're like, okay, what can I do?
Right.
The end of the earth, I'll be there tomorrow.
Right.
Like let's do it. Yeah.
Absolutely. One of the phrases that always comes to mind in those moments for me is there has to be a better way. Like there has to be a better way. Like, and it's just like that's where that focus goes, right? And we're
Hmm.
determined to figure it
Yeah.
out. And
Yep.
listen to guidance, of course, helps
Oh,
too.
for
Sounds
sure.
like you do.
Exactly.
Well, for
Yep.
those that are listening and watching, can you tell us more about the harmonic egg? Because I've done it now too. I've been to your place and I got to try it, and um it was very relaxing. It was just very regenerative was my experience.
Right.
But can you tell us more about like what it is and how it
Okay.
works and
Sure. It's it's an egg. It's literally egg shaped, but it's huge. So, if people are claustrophobic, it's nothing to be claustrophobic about. If you can fit into a cargo size van with no seats in it, you can definitely fit in this. Like it's
that's a
huge.
great way of
Um,
explaining.
right? Because I mean, your hands go to all sides and you can't even begin to touch the speakers on both sides. You can't
Hmm.
touch the top, this kind of thing. The seat tips back. It's an anti-gravity seat. Then we put a rice warmie bag on you and we put a blanket on you. So this way you can nicely relax. And we choose the lights to go with whatever's going on with you, whether it's inflammation, whether it's grief, you need clarity on something. Whatever it is holding you back or what you want to work on, we choose
Hmm.
that for that. And then the music, every piece of music has a frequency to it. So whether it's drumming because you're taking a test, you
Hmm.
got Alzheimer's, it stimulates the brain. So we have a young man who comes in regularly for the drumming right before
Hmm.
he takes a test. He's
Oh, how
amazing.
interesting.
But yeah, you can use the egg for so many things. But and then we set your mantra or your statement, for the egg. Then you're in there for 50 minutes. It's 40 minutes of music, 10 minutes of silence, and that silence is where the magic happens. So it's
Hmm.
where everything culminates together. And then it takes you 5 to 7 days to process it afterwards because it's
Hmm.
just your body is changing and accepting the changes. So you might feel less angry, you might feel less triggered, you might feel more calm, you might get a wave of clarity. That thing you're working on for work and you're having a hard time putting it together, all of a sudden it'll come together, you know.
Hmm.
So
It's almost like a meditative space that you're going into, but it's supported in a different way. So it's like there's this geometry with the egg. That's how it's designed, correct?
yes,
Like there's
sacred geometry. Yep.
sacred geometry involved. The
Yep.
music's intentional, the vibration, like with the egg. But then your background in vibrational like sound therapy you were talking about that you've learned, like
Mhm.
what is that for somebody that doesn't know or isn't familiar with that? Like what is it doing for your being,
Sure.
yourself?
Well, when it like, when say an older person speaks and their voice sounds different, like
Mm-hmm.
they have cancer, they're getting sick. Their
Mm-hmm.
voice actually changes because they're missing notes in their voice. So if we
Mm,
can support those areas that are missing in their voice, that'll help their body to do better. It'll help their frequencies to even out so that they're less sick. They're not, it'll support it so that it goes away, you
interesting.
know. Yeah, so I mean if you're a very angry person, you think of how high your voice gets when you're angry. We'll do the opposite and help you to ground. We'll play lower bass notes, we'll do piano music, this kind of stuff, and it helps to bring it back down. So you're not angry speaking, you're speaking at a different tone. And actually, when the frequency like that changes, your whole body resonates that change. So that's
Mm,
kind of what frequency therapy does is it supports your system, with
hmm.
whatever's lacking. Like
That's
xylophone, for
interesting.
example, helps with cancer.
Oh,
Piano
know that.
helps with PTSD.
Really? That's
Hmm.
fascinating.
Yeah, harp music, anything with strings to it is going to connect the head with the heart because it's
Mm.
strings connecting the two. Um,
That's quite interesting, and that makes sense almost. Just I happened to go to the symphony over the weekend, and there was a violinist, and yeah, I
oh,
was just like floating in it. I'm like, oh, this is like
mhm.
amazing. I'm just hearing it way
Yeah,
differently than maybe I had when I was a kid going, right? You're just like really
absolutely.
connecting with it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Violins have their own frequency too, and they work on different parts of the body. Cello is a beautiful one. Didgeridoo is a different one. I don't like didgeridoo, but it does
Hmm.
some beautiful things for the body.
Hmm.
You know.
So they're all different sounds, different frequencies, and they're all essentially supportive to
Yeah.
healing and
Hmm.
reconnecting the body in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what that space does for you don't really have to go in there and think about anything or try and do anything. You're just in there to be and receive
Yeah.
it.
Exactly. And it's a no touch therapy. So even if Like say I work on you and I'm a massage therapist and I had a really bad thing happen at home. Well, now when I'm
Hmm.
coming in to work on you, I'm still kind of, derailed by what's
That
going on in my
space.
head about that thing. And I'm working on you. You're not getting my whole 100% because I'm not 100%. With the
Hmm.
egg, it's always 100%. It
Hmm.
never has a bad day, so
Right.
you're always getting the same level of care put in with
Hmm.
you, and there's no outside interference. So
That
it's a
makes
little
sense.
more predictable than humans.
A
Not
little
that I
more
have bad days,
predictable.
but yeah.
Yeah, different. Yeah, they're just different ways of support, different
Right.
offerings of support.
Hmm.
Yeah, I just found it super fascinating. And when I was in there, I can't remember now how many times I've been in there, but it was a few. And
Yeah.
I just it reminded me of meditating, but in such a container of like more connection and support rather than trying to do it on your own or at home alone
Right.
and like all that. So,
Right.
and
It drops you
refreshing.
into the meditation much quicker.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah, because of the music, and I guess the sacred geometry too. Because on the left and right, you use a dodecahedron, which is, the 12-sided. So you
Hmm.
think back to 369, you think back to Nikola Tesla, and
Hmm.
then you're under a circle and you're on top of a hexagon.
Hmm.
So it's everything in there is to support you in dropping into that meditative state super quicker. And this meditation pod is not the first one that's been around. Like Nostradamus had one. When you go back in
Oh, really? I
history,
didn't know that.
meditation pods have been around for a long time. Next time you're in, I'll show you the original paperwork that I had about the harmonic egg. And
Uh-huh.
there's actually pictures in there of the older versions of the meditation pod. They were much smaller. They were
Uh-huh.
much smaller, but I guess he was comfortable in that. You and I wouldn't be, but
That's fascinating, but also not surprising too, right? They were so involved in understanding vibration and frequency and all
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So that makes sense. And sacred geometry, can you touch on that of anybody that's just not really familiar with what that term even means?
It goes back to biblical, but if you've seen like the 12 disciples, this kind of
Mhm.
thing, it still goes back to the same thing. And you always think 369, because when you look at the book Project 369, it
Hmm.
talks about writing things 3 times in the morning, 6 times in the afternoon, and 9 times in the evening. If you do that daily, you can manifest that because it's the
Interesting.
369,
I've
right?
not heard that before.
Yeah, look
So
up
I just
Project
learned something.
369. That's a beautiful book. That's a good one. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, when you manifest things, you want to do it in those numbers 369.
Okay.
And with it being 12-sided, that's all of that. So and the sacred geometry, there's a whole book about sacred geometry and how it can help you manifest things, whether it's abundance, health, you go down the list, happiness,
Mhm.
joy, whatever, you can manifest all those beautiful things, if you're just on the right frequency, if you're doing the right sacred geometry.
Interesting. Yeah, and
Mhm.
like the Fibonacci sequence, I'm sure ties in there as well. Like that, I've seen incredible videos on. It's really fascinating.
Yes.
There's so much down that rabbit hole, I'm sure.
That rabbit hole's very busy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So with the egg, with the business you have, like what really inspired you? I always love to ask, like what really inspired you to it sounds like from such a young age, you were already kind of naturally in that space and curiosity and all of that. But then, like, what really inspired you to do medical massage? And then, of course, I understand with the COVID to get the egg, but like,
Right.
where did that come from and what did you really connect with?
I've always thought we're always connected. Like I would run into people at parks and stuff like that, and we would have these great connections. And I thought, why did I meet this woman in a park? I'm 9 years old. She's telling me about her divorce,
Hmm.
whatever, this kind of stuff. And I always thought that was interesting. And I've always had a great connect with people. But when I got into the beauty industry, I was doing nails. And
Okay.
one of my clients kept coming in and she's like, Tammie, with your head down with doing nails all the time. She goes, you really need to get a neck massage. She goes, you'd love my Stephanie. And I was like, mm-mm. I'm not getting a massage. Get naked in front of some stranger. I'm good. Right. So there's no way I was going to participate in that because I didn't understand what massage exactly meant.
Sure.
I don't want strangers touching me. And it goes back to my abuse background and this kind of thing. But she didn't know that. And finally, a year later, I got Lyme's disease and I couldn't move my neck. Like it literally up or down, left or right. It simply wouldn't move.
Whoa.
And this client came back in and I said, Chris, I said, can your Stephanie help me with my neck? I said, I can't move it. She's like, oh, Tam, you're going to love Stephanie. And I was like, Whatever, so she gave me her number. I went and saw her, and she's beautiful. She's got the long, beautiful yoga hair. She's got the long, beautiful yoga body. And she's so cute. She takes me upstairs, this big, billowy windowed, room with this big, fabulous massage table. And she's like, oh, just get undressed and get on the table. And she waltzed out. And I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
oh my gosh. And all I kept thinking was, I wonder if I can get across that roof to that tree and I can go down that way. And then I thought, well, I still
And
can't move
leave.
my neck. So
Yeah.
I just stood up. So I got undressed really quick, jumped on the table, and pulled up the sheets. And I just was like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. As
Mm.
soon as she touched me, 10 minutes in, I was like, I am so back here next month. So I saw her every month for the next 5 years. And when she traveled, I would simply wait for her to come back. And she's like, oh, Chris can work on you, or so and so can work on you. And I'm like, nope, I, I'm not doing this with anybody else. I only trust you. She got me into talk therapy. She got me into eating seaweed. She got me into chiropractic care. She got me into pranayama breathing. It was
Oh
amazing.
wow.
She helped me with forgiveness of the person who had abused me. And it was
Mm.
amazing how much growth she helped me through. And then I finally enrolled in massage school at 28. And 6 months into massage school, I got hit by a car as a pedestrian.
Oh
And
my
that's what put me
gosh.
into medical massage.
Oh
Um,
my gosh.
yeah, he hit me in the hip. And then as I was going over, I hit my head on his hood. So I have three of my vertebrae now touch my spinal column. So I do have to be careful with my neck, like
Sure.
certain roller coasters I can't go on, this kind of thing. And if I get into a car accident again, it probably chances are I won't walk. So just because of where the vertebrae are hitting my spinal column. So I
Mm.
do have to be careful. But, if it happens, it happens, right? So
Yeah, I mean, like that's so many stories that you were just weaving in there, and it's like, you had Lyme's disease, you got hit by this car. It's like it's all been
yeah,
taking you somewhere, though. That's what I'm really seeing or hearing that you're
yeah,
sharing
very
is
much
that you were
so.
really connected with that, and the
Mhm.
support showed up that you needed, but you listened to it, which is not always easy to do.
No. And honestly, if you had told me back then when I got hit by the car that this is going to be for your highest good, I probably would have punched you,
Yeah.
you know,
Let's
because
be honest.
let's be honest, exactly, because it literally took me 2 years to come back from the accident,
Wow.
because like, where do you go? You have to recreate your whole self. Suddenly I couldn't, I mean, it took me about a year before I realized I could no longer do nails. And
Mhm.
I'd been doing nails at that point for 10 years.
Oh,
And
wow.
I couldn't have my head down that long. I mean, it would reverberate in my stomach. It would go down to my feet sometimes. I was having nerve pain from everything I was going through. And so eventually I had to stop doing nails. I've never cried harder than the day I had to not do nails anymore. Because these are people
Mm.
I'd seen every 2 weeks. I went through like meeting the nice guy, the engagement, the wedding, the babies, the dog, the death of the
Oh,
father,
yeah.
whatever. And these are people, they were my friends, for 10 years that I worked on. And so eventually I had to stop doing that. Took 2 years. I went into the dark night of the soul. Carolyn Miss was big for me. And I had to
Mhm.
refigure out who I am and what my purpose is. Because I got rid of my my chair massage machine. I couldn't get rid of my table because I needed it. I had people coming to the house to work on me, because I
Mhm.
couldn't do certain things. And
Right.
eventually, like, I got to the point where I figured out what I could do exercise wise, what I had to do food wise in order to take care of my body and keep the inflammation down. And now I'm doing good. I'm 55 now and I'm doing good. But, it's a constant work, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine that must have been so hard to go through, especially for that year you were saying of the Dark Night of the Soul. And
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
as you were going through that, like what kept you going or what kept you connected or focused on like the next, just one more
The
thing
next
the
thing.
next day or yeah.
I always think, I mean, the accident could have been so much worse,
Hmm.
because the biggest question I get, because as the car was approaching me and I could see it, I knew to relax over the car because I knew if I fought it, I was going under. And I've
Mm.
had people ask me, like, you thought that? And I'm like, you think so fast in those moments, that it just happens. I don't even know how to explain it, but it just happened. And as I was going along and trying to figure out what to do next, I was so excited when I could actually like walk without having like hip pain again. I
Hmm.
could actually move my neck again without going into spasms, this kind of thing. So, I mean, it took a long time to pull all that together, but I was so excited over the little things, you know, And I think that's probably what kept me going. But also at the same time, teaching? I was teaching my physical therapist how to do the work he needed to do on me because he went in and
Ah,
touched every one of my neck muscles and my scalene muscles, which are these guys here. Like if you see like those, all your
right.
scalene muscles need exercised and released when you're coming out of something like that. And I taught him how to go in there and very gently release everything, but he had to do it and he had to listen to me. He was amazing. But he didn't understand neuromuscular work. So I taught him how to do neuromuscular. And then when he was done working on my neck and I could see normal again, then he came and he worked on me every week at my house for 6 months to help my hips.
Wow.
So helping him helped me. Um,
Wow. Yeah.
yeah, I definitely would say helping him help me because it kept me focused and wanting to learn more. Like, okay, when we go into the hip like this, how do I feel afterwards? Is
Hmm.
it better? Can I touch the floor again? Can I put my pants on without my hip, being fiery? That kind of thing.
Hmm.
But he learned from it, I learned from it. So learning to me keeps me excited.
Ah, that's
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah,
That's beautiful. And that's what it sounds like you really know about yourself now. Like really deeply know, like for forever and ever continuing to
yeah,
learn will support some of that. That's really
absolutely.
beautiful what you were saying about helping him helped you. You know, it was such a reciprocal exchange and you were
Yeah.
supporting him, he was supporting you.
Hmm.
Um, with that, as like so the Lyme's disease, you had this car accident happen, you had your daughter, go through what she went through. And now I didn't know you used to do nails, so it's like really hearing just like how much you like helping people and connecting with people or being a part of
Right.
that like sense of community and support for
Hmm.
people.
Oh,
So
yeah.
what has it been like running your own business? Because being in your own business and supporting the community and what's now becoming like way more accepted, way more popular, or way more well known is more of these like alternative ways of healing and alternative ways of, supporting ourselves.
Hmm.
How has that been for you on seeing that change?
This honestly opening the center has been the most amazing thing because it's not just the harmonic egg, it's the salt room, it's the red light therapy, it's the negative ionic foot soak. It's the people that work here, like Priyanka that came in earlier. She does Graston technique and shockwave. They're amazing things, but she does really deep tissue stuff to scrape the muscles, the fascia, and help to release it. She's
Okay.
amazing. I have a gentleman here who does, massage, and he does interoral massage. So it's all in here to help release some of the, anxiety, anger, fear, that kind of thing.
Tension.
But he
Yeah.
does amazing full body massage, and it's crazy awesome that he showed up here. He showed up here for the egg. And then we
Hmm.
ended up talking, and he actually does massage. So he came here.
How
We have
funny.
two people now doing access bars here, which is another way to untell the story we tell ourselves. But
Okay.
access bars is amazing. Reiki, we have four different Reiki practitioners,
Uh-huh.
and then we have a woman who does angelic Reiki. You know,
Hmm.
we have so many energetic workers too. We have a woman who does soul sketch and crystal psychic readings. We have another woman who does like quantum healing and
That's
all sorts of
fascinating.
much more energetic stuff with the crystals and everything. Cord
Uh-huh.
cutting. She does all sorts of beautiful things. But these are people that to me, they mean so much because they can help you take your story from whatever it was to this much more beautiful space,
Hmm.
and when you get better, that does nothing but increase your value. And, for us to be part of your story is such an honor, you know.
That's really beautiful. I feel that.
Yeah.
I really feel that. Yeah, it's so fascinating to me just how many different options there are and how many different modalities there are and how many different whether it's energy work or whether it's the vibration part of it. I mean, it's all energy work, but the just the differences and
Yeah.
options out there and it's really like there's something for everybody is if you don't resonate with Reiki, there's something else you can do. Or if you really just like massage, you can just do that. And that's so, so special and helpful too.
Yeah.
How have you seen like perception of all of this change, especially because you were talking about when you were so young and doing yoga and your mom's like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
To all the
It's
way to now where it's like, again, like more and more people are seeking out these
right.
alternative ways.
Well, and people, yeah, people are becoming much more open-minded to it. And,
Hmm.
when we do the tour in here, when people come in, I'm like, well, do you want to see the harmonic egg? And then when they go in, they're like, oh my gosh, it's much more bigger than I thought. And then I say, do you want to sit in it? So they'll sit in it. We have the lights on and we have the music on so they can just feel it. And then we close the door for like a minute so they can feel it in there. And they're like, wow, just sitting in there was relaxing, you know?
Uh-huh.
And I can't imagine 50 whole minutes of this. Like, I'd probably be sleeping. And I'm like, yeah, that kind of thing. Like that, you can do that in there and it's going to help you. People go in and they talk about the vibration sound therapy. The woman actually puts the bowls on your body as she hits
Yes.
them. It resonates through your body. It's amazing. Um,
Uh-huh.
this kind of stuff. So when people come in and they actually see things like that and we explain them, then they're like, that's interesting. My aunt used to do something like that. It was like suddenly they'll pull in
Right.
memories of hippies they've known in past. And I'm like, well,
Hmm.
it's not just for hippies. This is old new therapy come back again.
Right.
Because this was the old normal. They had sound temples back in the day where you would go and we would all lay on the ground and there would be music playing to help us to heal.
Hmm.
And that was in the center of towns. We
Yeah.
don't have that anymore.
I love that. I love what you said because it's not really new. It's been
Mm-mm.
around forever. It's
Right.
just a matter of being more mainstream or more known or more like there's more
Yeah.
spaces with these types of offerings or
Yeah.
whatever. And not to go down the rabbit hole, but that's what they've been saying too about even the pyramids is that they're so designed for sound and for like
Yeah.
all that kind of frequency in mind. So
Yeah.
we won't go down that rabbit hole, but
But it's a fun rabbit hole.
it is a fun rabbit hole. And it all fascinates me. I mean, it's like the sound bowls, you're so right on that. Like having done that a couple times myself, it's like having that on you. You just feel something completely different that we just weren't really taught growing
Mm-mm.
up. It wasn't really
Yeah.
mainstream here in the US, like
No.
more Eastern and other countries, I'm sure it's very established and very well known. But we're kind
Right.
of like coming along here with it of like there's way more options to recover, heal, support your
Mhm.
body when it's sick. And
Yeah.
Lyme's disease, that's a big deal. That
Yes.
is a big deal.
Yeah.
How did you even find out that you had it? Some people go for a while, and at least here in the Northeast, I know
Yeah.
depending where you live, it may not be so common, but the Northeast,
Hmm.
that's
It
one
was
thing we
it
have
was
here.
bad. I back in the day, I used to rollerblade all the time. I was outside all the time, which is normal for, young person. Um, and I left work on a Saturday night, the salon, and I got home and something happened and I just started crying. And I couldn't stop crying. And when I would stop crying, I'd be asleep. And when I'd wake
Mhm.
up, I'd start crying again. And I couldn't even call anybody to let them know I was having a problem. So I just cried and slept for like 3 days. And there was no texting back then. This is, I was 23, so it's going back 30 something years ago. And finally, when Tuesday morning rolled around to Wednesday morning, I guess, and I went to get showered and get ready for work. I live alone, so I have no reason to ever close my doors. I closed the bathroom door enough that there was a mirror right there, full length mirror, and I
Mhm.
caught the back of my right leg, and there was a huge bruise on it, like this big, huge bruise. And that was evidently the beginning of where my rash was, because back in the
Wow.
day there was 8 rashes you could get. And thank God I saw it. And so I wore a skirt to work that morning because one of my nurses was coming in that day to get her nails done. And I said, okay, so here's what's going on. I've been crying all weekend and I slept all weekend. And I said, then I wake up to this bruise. And she looked at me, she says, you have Lyme's. You have to get to the doctor like tomorrow.
Oh,
So I went
wow.
in and the doctor was so funny because this is going back so long ago. She goes, well, we definitely think it's Lyme's. And do you want to go on 2 weeks or 4 weeks of antibiotics? And I looked at her and I'm like, you're the doctor. She's like, we don't know enough about it. So do you want 2 or 4 weeks? And I was like, I guess 4 weeks, please. And so I went on 4 weeks of antibiotics and um, I've had so much done since then. They did a spinal column on me, a spinal tap when I was 30, and there was
Mhm.
no Lyme's in my spinal column, which was good. And then when I was 50, a woman did voice analysis on me, and she goes, "Oh yeah," she goes, "When did you have Lyme's? Because it's still in your voice analysis." So she
Wow.
cleared the rest of my Lyme's at 50. So that was pretty
That's
interesting.
so interesting.
Yep,
Even to find
yep,
like remnants, although then you think about it and you're like, okay, maybe it's not that crazy, right? Like there's so much we can tap into.
right. Well, I guess, I guess it's like your hair too, right? Like if you did drugs, say a year ago, it's probably still here,
Right.
or if you had chemicals in your system and you had chemo or something, it's still here in your hair. It's just further out because you had it so long ago,
Right.
you know. So it's really important to realize everything you do to your body, good, bad, or indifferent, leaves a
Hmm.
footprint on it, you
Right.
know. So when you say bad things to yourself, when you say good things to yourself, it's affecting you. When you
Yeah, in
have a
more
disease, it
ways.
affects you.
Yeah, in
Yeah,
more ways than we know and realize and
yeah,
remember,
yeah.
for sure. That's so
Hmm.
interesting. Um, well, with that, I always like to ask everybody when they come on of like now
Yeah.
that we're in the new year of 2025, is there anything that you're really seeing as a theme with everybody you work with, or is there anything that you really feel is good to share with everybody as they go into this year of what's good to connect with, or what this year looks like, or what you really leave them with inspiration to think about?
Absolutely. We started doing sourdough bread classes here, and now we're going into bone broth classes.
Oh, how fun.
We're going to start teaching more Ayurvedic, and she taught people how to make their own yogurt at home. She sent them home with a starter. Obviously, sourdough ends up with a starter. The bone broth, you're going to end up going home with marshmallows made out of the gelatin.
Uh-huh.
Because we want people to start doing things for themselves. We want to teach about homeopathy in here and
Mm,
how it's not a woo-woo thing. It actually works. We want to teach about flower essence. It's time to learn to do things yourself because if you're not your greatest teacher by the time you're 30, you're in trouble. That was something that was told to me in my 20s. And honestly, at 30 is when everything hit the fan for me. And
mm,
I remember walking out of my one doctor's office, and he basically told me I had MS at 30. And it was a B12 deficiency, but that was part of me being sick as leftover from the car accident. It went into the next thing, and he told me I had MS, and it was a B12 deficiency. But if I
wow.
hadn't questioned my blood work and if I hadn't questioned everything, I would have thought I have MS. That's it. I just got to go pick out a wheelchair and figure out the rest of my life, you
Hmm.
know. But you have to learn how to do things yourself. If you're sad, let's get to the bottom of why you're sad.
Hmm.
Did it have to do with a past life? Did it have to do with, abuse in this life? Did it have to do with, your dog passing away? Did it have to do with a husband passing away? Like what happened to you to make you feel this way? And how can we help you? But you
Hmm.
have to ask your question because if you keep going to the doctor and you keep getting medication to stuff your stuff down,
Right.
it's going to come out in other ways.
That's amazing. Yeah, beautiful way to share it. And that message, it's learning, what I'm hearing too is it's learning how to do it yourself with
Yeah.
help. Like it's
Yes.
getting the help and the guidance to learn
Yeah.
that and to
Yeah.
really deeper connect with that. So you're
Yeah.
making some strides quicker than
Hmm.
you would
Oh
be.
yeah, absolutely. Well, with all the cold, whatever this thing was, it was going around lately with the respiratory, it ends up people are coming in for the salt room because they're starting to
Uh,
understand. And then we talk about mullein, how you can take mullein or marshmallow root to help you to like loosen up the phlegm and get rid of it.
I did
Drinking
not know
hot water
that.
with lemon. Yeah, hot water with lemon and ginger and manuka honey. Like those are
Hmm.
beautiful things. There's homeopathy that can help you with this. But come in and do the salt room, come in and do these things. You can help yourself to get over this so you don't have this crazy cough for weeks on end. You know?
Right. Yeah, now that you're mentioning that, I'm like, I did even talked with a friend the other day that was saying that. And but it is the season, at least for the Northeast, that something's going around, or probably
Yeah,
everywhere. But
everywhere. But it seems like we were either getting the norovirus, the stomach virus, or this crazy wacky thing where you feel like you got hit in the head with a baseball bat.
oh
And then it
wow.
ends up going in your lungs. It's the strangest thing I've ever seen. But we've had
Okay.
so many people come in with that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting, very informative, very insightful. Like you have such an incredible, we only got like a snippet of your life journey, but just from hearing like your stories and what you're sharing, it's like there's been such a level of compassion and understanding too that you've really developed, which helps you with everything you're doing. It's like you had to go through so much of that stuff yourself, and now you're
Right.
translating it right back to people of like, this is how you can heal, this is how you can help yourself, this is how you can like really do things differently, not shove it back down, like you were saying with
Right.
the
The
stuff we were,
medicines.
yeah, taught and
Yeah.
programmed with. There's always
Hmm.
a time and a place for some things, and it's like there's way more options than we really realize.
Absolutely. Well, we weren't taught them.
Hmm.
And how do you know something unless you're not, unless you're actually shown how to do it?
Absolutely. That's such a great point because if we weren't taught to know these things, yeah,
Hmm.
just by being curious and like just if you're listening to this podcast or watching it, it's like you're opening up that curiosity and the curiosity part, that exploration part of like, okay, I can say I don't know, but I'm willing to be open to that information coming in is like just a huge part of the journey itself.
Oh, beyond doubt. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Tammie, if people want to come meet with you and see your space in Abundant Healing in New Jersey, or just get in contact with you, what's the best way to do that?
Email is great, or check out our website, abundanthealingnj.com. And if you want to email, it's Tammie S at abundanthealing.com. Ooh, abundanthealingnj.com. Um, and then, of course, the number is 908-777-1363. Phone call is always easiest, because that you can get a quick answer on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
Hillsborough. So it's off of 287. So it's fairly good depending on where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're in New Jersey, definitely stop by and see Tammie and friends, everybody that's there, and check it out. It's been great. I've loved coming there for myself. I've brought my family there as well. So yeah, thanks for having that space and
You're so welcome.
supporting the community. It's super awesome and great to share this. So thank you so much
Perfect.
for being here today. Any closing thoughts?
No, I think we're good. We covered everything here. We covered a lot of good stuff here. So, and I'm so grateful you had the time for this. It's worked out perfect.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you for being here and thank you for your time.
Perfect.
Thank you for being here and listening to this episode. Please take a quick moment just to subscribe to this channel. By subscribing, we can bring you more amazing episodes, incredible guests, and more content to support you on your journey within. Thank you for listening.